You think your dog loves when you pet him? Maybe. But what if I told you that in many moments what feels like a gesture of love to you might be generating exactly the opposite in your pet? Most people believe, with all their heart, that they are showing affection to their dog. They pet him, hug him, kiss him, hold him in their arms, and everything seems beautiful. But what few people realize is that, without meaning to, that same gesture can be causing discomfort, anxiety, and even a silent, emotional distance. That's right. Your dog may be trying to tell you something all the time and you simply aren't seeing it. Have you ever gone through this? You were petting your dog, full of love and good intentions, and suddenly he turned his face the other way, yawned, licked his nose for no apparent reason, or simply got up and walked away. You probably thought, he's just being lazy, or that's just his personality. But no, those behaviors have a much deeper meaning than they appear to. When a dog turns his face away during petting, he is signaling discomfort. When he yawns out of nowhere, he is trying to relieve internal tension. When his body suddenly stiffens, it is because something about that touch is not making sense to him. And when he walks away right after you finish petting him, well, that says a lot about how that moment was experienced by your pet. The scariest part is that these signals seem so small, so subtle, that they go completely unnoticed in everyday life. We keep petting the way we always have, thinking we are strengthening the bond while the dog gradually builds a relationship of tolerance, not real connection. And here's the point that changes everything. Dogs and humans do not interpret touch the same way. For us, a hug means safety and affection. For many dogs, that same hug can be a claustrophobic and stressful experience. Their body language is completely different from ours, and understanding that difference is the first step toward transforming your relationship with your animal. What you're about to discover may surprise you, and more than that, it may completely change the way you relate to your dog starting today. This is not about loving less. On the contrary, it is about loving in a way that your pet can actually receive, understand, and give back. Today you will learn how dogs interpret human touch, what signals they use to communicate what they feel during physical contact, and, most importantly, what is the right way to pet them to create a genuine and lasting emotional connection, not based on assumptions, but on real behavior, on true communication between you and your dog. Stay with me until the end, because every part of this content was designed to help you see your dog through different eyes, and to build with him a relationship based on trust, respect, and real affection. And to start, we need to understand something that most owners have never stopped to think about. How does a dog actually process human touch? But before we continue, I need to stop here for a second, because what you just read up to this point already says a lot about who you are as an owner. Most people spend years living with their dog without ever questioning whether the way they show affection actually makes sense to him. You made it this far. That is already different. That is already real love. And that is exactly why I want to ask you one thing right now. Stop for a moment and think. Have you ever noticed any of these behaviors in your dog? That yawn in the middle of being petted, the face turning the other way, the body that stiffens in a subtle but noticeable way? If that has happened to you, share it in the comments. It can be a small detail, a specific situation, a question that stayed with you. It does not matter. This space is yours, and every comment here turns this conversation into something much bigger than a video. It becomes a community of people who genuinely want to understand what their animal feels. Your participation here is what makes this channel grow and reach more people with this kind of content. Every story shared can be exactly what another owner needed to read, to see their own dog through different eyes. So if this topic resonates with you, leave a comment here about what touched you the most so far. And if this video made you realize something new about your dog, even if it is just a seed of doubt, a reflection still forming, hit the like button now. It is not a small gesture. It is what shows YouTube that this kind of content needs to reach more people who love their dogs. Think about it. Every like is one more owner who can learn to communicate better with the animal that trusts them completely. Every like is a dog that will be understood in a way that was impossible before. You have the power to make that happen right now with a single click. So hit like and be part of this, because that simple gesture helps other owners avoid mistakes without even realizing they are making them. Now, if you made it this far and felt that this content speaks directly to you, I need to ask you something. Can you afford to miss the next video? Because what you will find on this channel is not empty theory. It is real language, real behavior, real connection. Every video is a new layer of understanding about the being who trusts you more than anyone else in the entire world, and who cannot tell you in words what he is feeling. If you love your dog and want to understand what he really feels, this channel was made for you. Here you will discover signals that most people ignore every single day without knowing how much it affects the bond with their pet. Subscribe now, because whoever truly understands their dog never looks at him the same way again, and you deserve to be part of that group. Click the subscribe button, turn on the bell so you never miss any content, and come with me. Because now that you already know, your dog is communicating all the time. It is time to understand exactly what he is trying to tell you, and how the right touch can transform this relationship once and for all. The big mistake almost everyone makes. We grow up believing that affection is affection, that hugging, squeezing, and touching are universal gestures of love. The problem starts right there. We project our own way of feeling onto the dog without realizing that he processes the world in a completely different way from ours. This is the hidden truth behind bonds that seem close but in practice are distant. When you hug someone you love, you are saying, "I am here, I trust you." But for many dogs, a hug is a form of restraint, something that limits movement and activates an internal state of alert. Not because he does not like you, but because his body was programmed to interpret it in a completely different way. The most common mistakes seem so natural that no one questions them. Touching directly on the head suddenly, squeezing too hard during petting, even with all the tenderness in the world, petting when he is anxious, thinking it will calm him down, when in fact it intensifies the emotional state he is already experiencing, invading the animal's space without waiting for any invitation. For many dogs, certain forms of petting do not feel like love. They feel like pressure, and that is one of the most impactful revelations of this journey. And here comes what weighs the most. Your dog may be tolerating something without actually liking it. He does not run away, he does not growl, so you conclude that everything is fine. But tolerance is not connection. Leave a comment here. I had never thought about it that way. The secret signals your dog gives during petting. And it is exactly in the backdrop of that silence that the transformation begins. Because your dog is not silent, he speaks all the time. What is missing is knowing how to listen. When he turns his head during petting, it is not distraction. It is a gentle request for space. When he closes his eyes quickly and tensely, different from that relaxed gaze, he is signaling internal discomfort. When he licks his nose without having eaten anything, he is trying to regulate an anxiety that you probably did not even notice. There is more. When the body freezes, even for a second, it is his nervous system entering alert mode. When his ear lowers subtly, it is emotion being hidden. When he simply gets up and walks away, after being petted, many people think it is just his personality. It is not. It is a clear decision. And here comes the shock. Many of these signals are mistaken for cuteness. The yawn during petting, for example. It seems like relaxation, but most of the time it is the opposite. It is his body trying to relieve accumulated emotional tension. Some dogs spend entire years without being able to clearly communicate discomfort to their own owners. Years of tolerating, adapting, adjusting, while the real bond never truly deepens. Now that you already know these signals, the question that changes everything arises. How do you create a touch that he actually wants to receive? Leave a comment here. My dog has already given me these signals. The science of touch. Where your dog really likes to be petted. Now I want to show you something that completely changes the way of looking at this. Because it is not just about how you touch, but about where you touch. The science of animal behavior has already mapped the regions that tend to generate more comfort and security in dogs. The chest is one of them. Gentle movements in that area tend to be well received by most animals. The side of the neck and the shoulders as well. These are areas that other dogs use during positive social interactions, so his body already recognizes that touch as something safe. Now the areas to be careful with. The top of the head, the paws, the muzzle. These are regions that many dogs tolerate, but rarely choose. The belly is another point that misleads many owners. When the dog rolls onto his back, it is not always an invitation. Sometimes it is a submissive response, not a sign of pleasure. Intensity also reveals a lot. Dogs prefer calm, slow, and predictable movements. A sudden touch, even if affectionate, activates the alert system before any emotional connection can happen. And here is the most honest test you can do right now. Stop the petting for a few seconds and observe. If he comes closer seeking more contact, you are on the right track. If he simply walks away, he just gave you valuable information. The best petting is always the one the dog chooses to continue. That mindset changes everything. What changes in the dog when he feels safe? And when that shift happens, you feel it. No explanation needed. You simply notice that something has changed. When the dog begins to understand that your touch is predictable, respectful, and safe, a silent transformation happens inside him. Trust is not built in a day, but it reveals itself in small gestures that before you might not have known how to recognize. He starts leaning against you spontaneously, without any apparent reason, without wanting food or a walk, just because he wants to be near. He begins to sleep closer with a relaxed body, calm breathing, eyes closing slowly. He follows you around the house not out of anxiety but by choice. That is the real impact of a bond built with awareness. The gaze also changes. That tense look of someone who is always calculating the next move gives way to something softer, more present. It is the look of someone who trusts. And here is the truth that few people stop to feel. When the dog realizes that you respect his limits, he begins to see you as a safe harbor, not as someone he tolerates, but as someone he chooses to be with. Petting is no longer just touch. It becomes language. It becomes real emotional communication between two species that learned, together, to understand each other. This journey has an impact that goes far beyond petting itself. The truth: no one told you about loving a dog. Now I need to tell you something that sums up everything you saw up to this point, and that will stay in your head for a long time. The problem was never a lack of love. No owner who made it to this point in the video loves their dog too little. The problem is that no one teaches the emotional language of dogs. We learn how to feed them, vaccinate them, walk them, but no one talks about how to truly communicate with the being that trusts you more than anyone in the world. And that gap has a silent and profound impact. It does not show up in a dramatic way. It shows up in the dog that stays in the corner, in the gaze that looks away, in the body that never fully relaxes near you. These are small revelations, but they say everything about the quality of the bond that was built. Your dog speaks to you all the time, in silence, with his body, with his gaze, with the decision to come close or stay away. Every gesture is a message, and now that you know this, that message will never go unnoticed again. This is the hidden truth behind every relationship between human and dog. Real connection begins when you stop acting on instinct and start acting with awareness. If you made it this far, you are no longer the same owner who started this video. Something changed, and that matters. Now I want to hear from you. Does your dog do any of these behaviors? Does he turn his face away, walk off after being petted, freeze for a second for no apparent reason? Tell me in the comments, because each behavior can have a different meaning. When you share, you also help other people better understand their own dogs. And I read everything. Every comment becomes fuel to bring videos that are closer and closer to your reality. Write it down below. I really want to know your story. If this video made you realize something new about your dog, hit the like button now. That shows YouTube that this kind of content needs to reach more people who love their dogs. It may seem simple, but that gesture helps other owners avoid mistakes without realizing it. And in the end, more dogs live better because of it. So hit like and be part of this. If you love your dog and want to keep understanding what he really feels, this channel was made for you. Here you will discover signals that most people ignore every single day. Every video is a new way to strengthen the bond with whoever trusts you completely. If that makes sense to you, subscribe now, because whoever truly understands their dog never looks at him the same way again. There is a video right here on the side that complements everything we talked about today. Click it and keep going with me over there.